Hey guys, tonight we journey back thousands of years to the banks of the Nile, to a civilization known for pyramids, pharaohs, and gods that watched your every move. But behind the gold masks and grand temples lies a much harsher reality. Tonight we're asking what would happen if you lived just one day in ancient Egypt. Because let me tell you, the sun isn't the only thing that will roast you alive. You think of ancient Egypt and picture golden pyramids and powerful pharaohs. The truth is, for most people, life was a cycle of back-breaking jobs, where the biggest promotion you could hope for was a decent burial. The breakfast you're about to eat is sand-filled bread and beer that's as thick as porridge. And that's on a good day. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why just surviving a day back then was a miracle, and you'll be more grateful than ever for your modern desk job. What time is it where you are? I'd love to know where you're listening from around the world. And if you like these strange, quiet dives into the past, maybe hit subscribe. It means more than you know. Now dim the lights. Let your body sink into the mattress. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. You're not choosing a career tonight. You were born for this. And in ancient Egypt, some jobs were a fate worse than being devoured by the underworld. You wake up not to an alarm, but to the sun turning your tiny home into a clay oven. You're in a one-room hut made of mud bricks, a material that absorbs the desert heat and radiates it back at you all day and all night. The floor is just packed earth-cool for a moment in the pre-dawn dark, but you know it won't last. You share this space with your entire family, parents, siblings, and maybe a grandparent whose cough is the first sound you hear each morning. Privacy isn't a concept. A reed mat separates your sleeping area from the corner where the family goat is already awake and chewing on something it shouldn't be. There are no windows, only a small opening high in the wall that lets in a sliver of light, and a thick, soupy air that smells of your neighbor's cooking fire, the nearby Nile, and the ever-present dust. You slept on a straw mattress, a thin sack that does little to soften the hard ground, and is home to a thriving community of fleas who treat you like a nightly buffet. Your only blanket is a coarse linen sheet, which feels more like a symbolic gesture against the cool night air that has now completely vanished, replaced by a suffocating stillness. You can hear the village stirring outside, the murmur of voices, the braying of a donkey, the rhythmic grinding of stone on stone as another family prepares their morning bread. This small, cramped, fragile hut is your entire world. It's where you were born, where you will eat, and where you will likely die. And it offers no escape from the heat, the sounds, or the life of labor that awaits you just outside the door. Now it's time for breakfast. Don't imagine a leisurely meal. This is a quick, functional refueling before the real work begins. You gather with your family, dipping chunks of coarse barley bread into a small bowl of oil or water. The bread is dense, heavy, and full of grit from the grinding stones. Every bite is a negotiation between your teeth and the sand. This isn't a mistake. It's just a feature of daily life, and it's why most Egyptians had teeth worn down to stumps by middle age. To wash it down, you have beer. But this isn't the refreshing, bubbly drink you might imagine. It's a thick, sour, porridge-like brew, low in alcohol but high in calories. It's your liquid bread, and even the children drink it, because the water from the Nile, while sacred, is also a swimming lottery of parasites and bacteria. The beer is safer. It's sustenance. If you're lucky, you might have an onion or a handful of dates to go with your meal. Meat is a fantasy reserved for rare festivals or offerings to the gods. Fish maybe, if the river has been generous, but it's often salted and dried to a texture that could sharpen a knife. You eat quickly, silently. There is no lingering over your meal. There is only the bread, the beer, and the sun climbing higher in the sky, a silent, burning supervisor telling you it's time to work. Your labor is not just a job. It is a sacred duty. The gods are not distant figures in ancient Egypt. They are your landlords, your foremen, and your quality control managers. Ra, the sun god, is watching you from his celestial barge, judging your effort. Osiris, the god of the underworld, is waiting to weigh your heart. The pharaoh is not merely a king. He is a living god, the earthly embodiment of Horus. His decrees are divine law. The pyramids aren't just tombs, they are resurrection machines designed to ensure the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, which in turn ensures the stability of the entire cosmos. This concept is called Ma'at, the fundamental order of truth, justice, and cosmic balance. Your role as a humble farmer or laborer is to maintain Ma'at through your work. If you build the temple correctly, if you harvest the grain on time, if you pay your taxes without complaint, you are upholding the order of the universe. If you fail, the consequences aren't just a punishment from your overseer. They could be a failed harvest, a plague, or a low flood from the Nile, all signs that the gods are displeased. This belief system is woven into every aspect of your life. It means your work is never just for yourself or your family. You are a tiny gear in a massive divine machine. And the pressure to perform your duty perfectly is immense, because if you don't, it's not just your life that's at risk, it's the balance of the world itself. You do not choose this life. You are born into it. There is no career ladder to climb, no opportunity for a dramatic change of scenery. If your father was a farmer, you are a farmer. If he was a potter, your hands will know the feel of clay for the rest of your days. Your fate was written the moment you took your first breath. And there is one reality that hangs over every able-bodied man, corvée labor. The state can conscript you at any time for its monumental building projects. During the Akhet, the season of inundation, when the Nile floods the fields and farming is impossible, thousands of men are called upon to serve the pharaoh. You might be sent hundreds of miles from your home to haul stones for a new temple, to dig a canal, or to build a tomb for a noble you will never meet. This is not considered slavery. It is your civic and religious duty. You are paid in rations, bread, beer, and onions. Enough to keep you alive, but not enough to make you comfortable. You sleep in makeshift camps, work from sunrise to sunset under the lash of an overseer, and hope you survive long enough to return to your family when the waters recede. This system is the engine that built the wonders of ancient Egypt. But for you, it is a constant looming threat. The knowledge that at any moment your life can be interrupted and you can be thrown into some of the most grueling, dangerous, and thankless jobs the ancient world has ever conceived. You are not a slave. At least that's what they tell you. You are a farmer, a free man. But when the pharaoh's summons arrives in your village, you have no choice. The season of inundation has come, the Nile has swallowed the fields, and there is no work to be done at home. So you and thousands of other men are herded onto crowded barges, floating downriver to Giza, where a man-made mountain is rising from the sand. Your day begins before the sun. The air is still cool, but the silence is already broken by the shouts of overseers and the clatter of 1,000 bronze and stone tools. Dust is everywhere. A fine white limestone powder that coats your skin, gets in your mouth, and settles in a film at the back of your throat. Breakfast is a hunk of bread and a jug of weak beer, enough to give you strength, but never enough to make you feel full. And then the work begins. You are part of a team, 100 men perhaps, assigned to haul a single block of limestone. It is heavier than anything you have ever imagined, the weight of a herd of elephants. The block rests on a wooden sledge, and your job is to pull it up a colossal ramp of earth and rubble that winds its way up the growing pyramid. The papyrus rope cuts into your shoulders and hands. You pull, straining your muscles, screaming in protest. Sweat stings your eyes, mixing with the dust and grit. There is no room for error. If one man stumbles, the team could lose its footing. If the rope snaps, the block will slide, crushing anyone who isn't fast enough to escape. You see men injured every day, a crushed finger, a broken ankle. They are carried away, and another man immediately takes their place. The machine never stops. The overseers walk the ramps, whip in hand. They don't use it often, but its presence is a constant reminder. Slow down and you will feel it sting. Complain, and you might be beaten or have your rations cut. So you keep quiet, head down, and just pull. The groan of the sledge on wooden rollers, the shouts of the overseers, and the gasps of the men around you, that is the symphony of your life. You are not building a tomb. You are building a stairway to the stars for a living God. But from down here, caked in mud and sweat, you see nothing but the stone in front of you and the bare feet of the man ahead. When the sun finally sets, painting the desert sky in shades of blood red, the work stops. You trudge back to the workers' village, a makeshift settlement of identical huts. You eat your dinner of bread and beer, maybe with an onion. Your body aches, but you know that tomorrow and the day after, and for years to come, that mountain of stone will still be there waiting, and you will pull. The Nile is a distant memory. Here in the searing silence of the Sinai Desert, there is no fertile silt, no green reeds, only rock sand and a cruel cloudless blue sky. You were sent here not by choice. You are perhaps a prisoner of war, a convict, or simply an unlucky laborer conscripted for the Pharaoh's mission. Your job to quarry turquoise and copper, the precious stones that will adorn the tombs of kings and the necklaces of queens. Life in the quarry is a form of slow death. By day the sun bakes the rocks until they are blistering to the touch. There is no shade except for your own. Water is carefully rationed, never enough to quench the burning thirst in your throat. Your food is dry bread and a few dates carried across the desert on the backs of camels. The real work begins in the darkness. You crawl into a narrow shaft chiseled into the side of the mountain. It is so tight you can only move on your hands and knees. The air inside is thick, hot, and stale. Your only light comes from a small, flickering oil lamp that spews black smoke, making you cough. You take a bronze chisel and a stone mallet, and you chip away at the hard rock hour after hour. The sound of your chipping echoes in the small space, a monotonous rhythm of despair. Silica dust fills the air. You breathe it in with every gasp, knowing it is slowly turning your lungs to stone. The men around you cough a deep, dry hack that never leaves them. You see men collapse from exhaustion, or worse, from a cave-in. A low rumble, a shudder, and a section of the tunnel can give way, burying those inside alive. There are no rescue missions, only silence and the digging of a new shaft. The overseers, usually hardened Egyptian soldiers, stand at the entrance to the tunnel, ensuring no one escapes. They are not concerned with your safety, only with the daily quota. At the end of the day, you hand them the small blue-green shards of turquoise or the green-veined copper ore. These tiny, beautiful stones are the reason for all your suffering. They will be sent back to Thebes, worked into fine jewelry, and worn by people who will never know the darkness, the dust, and the fear of this mine. At night, the desert turns bone-chillingly cold. You huddle in a crude stone shelter, trying to sleep as the cough racks your chest. You dream of the Nile of the color green of life. But every morning you wake to the same reality, rock dust, and another day of chipping away at the heart of the mountain, hoping today isn't the day the mountain takes your heart in return. You work in the Wabit at the place of purification. But ironically, there is nothing pure here. The air is thick with the scent of death, a sweet, cloying odor of decay, thinly masked by the smell of incense oils and dry natron salt. Your job is one of the most sacred in Egypt, preparing the dead for their journey to the afterlife. It is also one of the filthiest. Your day is spent with corpses. The bodies are brought to the embalming tent, laid out on wooden tables. They are nobles' priests, the ones who can afford immortality. Your first task is to remove the brain. There is no elegant way to do this. You take a long iron hook, insert it through the nostril of the deceased, and begin to whisk. You stir and scrape until the brain liquefies. Then you turn the body over and let it drain out. The rest is dissolved with oils. Next are the internals organs. A senior embalmer, the slasher, makes a single incision on the left side of the abdomen with a sharp flint knife. It is your job to reach inside the warm, slick cavity and remove the stomach, liver, lungs, and intestines. The heart, the seat of the soul, is left in place. These organs are washed with palm wine and spices, then placed into 4 canopic jars, each guarded by one of the sons of Horus. The now empty cavity must be cleaned. You rinse it with wine stuff, it with linen packets of myrrh, cinnamon, and other herbs, and then sew the incision shut. The body is now ready for the drying process. It is covered completely in natron, a natural salt that draws out all moisture. For 40 days, the body lies in the salt, shriveling and hardening the skin, turning black and leathery. The smell grows more intense. Once the drying is complete, you wash the salt away and begin the wrapping. Hundreds of yards of linen are used, wound carefully around each limb, each finger, each toe. Between the layers, you place amulets, a scarab beetle to protect the heart, an eye of Horus for healing. Each layer of linen comes with a prayer, a spell whispered to protect the deceased on their perilous journey through the Duat, the underworld. You work in silence, broken only by the buzzing of flies and the murmuring of priests. Your hands are perpetually coated in oil and resin. The scent of death clings to your hair and clothes. When you return home, people move away from you. You are considered ritually unclean, a handler of the dead, yet your work is vital. Without you, there is no journey to the afterlife. You are the gatekeeper of eternity, even as you live in a world of decay. The night is your friend, silence is your tool, and desperation is your motive. You are not a criminal by choice. Perhaps a famine has swept through your village, or the Pharaoh's taxes have claimed your last grains of wheat. Your children are hungry, and you know that just a few miles away in the Valley of the Kings, the dead sleep with more wealth than you could earn in 10 lifetimes. You do not work alone. Tomb robbing is a team effort, a lookout, a digger, and someone brave enough to slip into the darkness. Tonight, you are that person. Under a silver moon, you arrive at an unmarked tomb, or perhaps one that a corrupt guard has pointed you to. Fear is a cold knot in your stomach, but your family's hunger is colder still. The work begins. You use a bronze chisel and a wooden mallet to start chipping away at the plaster, sealing the entrance. Every sound feels like a thunderclap in the desert silence. Did you hear footsteps? It's just the wind, you tell yourself. Are the Medjay guards out there? You pray to the gods that they are asleep or otherwise occupied. After hours, you make a small opening. Stale air, heavy with the dust of centuries' oil and forgotten things, rushes out to meet you. You light a small torch and squeeze inside. The darkness swallows you. Your torchlight dances across walls painted with scenes from the underworld, jackal-headed gods, winged serpents, and hieroglyphs promising terrible retribution for those who trespass. The curse reads, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." You try not to read them. You are not here for history. You are here for gold. You move deeper past false corridors and decoy burial chambers designed to fool men like you. Finally, you reach the main burial chamber. It's there, the stone sarcophagus, and around it, the treasure. Wooden chests filled with linen. Alabaster jars holding perfumes. Gilded furniture and jewelry, necklaces. Rings and bracelets of gold and lapis lazuli. Your heart pounds. You work quickly, stuffing the smaller items into a linen sack. You don't take everything, just enough to survive. You try not to look at the sarcophagus, not to think of the king sleeping within, but you can feel his presence, a heavy, judgmental silence. Did you hear a whisper? You spin around. Nothing. Just the dancing shadows. Your fear is not only of being caught, it is of being cursed, that the Pharaoh's spirit, his Ka, is watching, and that Ammit, the devourer of souls, is waiting for you in the next life. You scramble out back into the cool night air, clutching a bag heavy with wealth and sacrilege. Now comes the hard part, selling the gold without being noticed, returning home and pretending nothing has happened, and trying to sleep knowing you have traded the peace of a dead man for the survival of your family. You have succeeded tonight, but you know that one day the justice of the gods or the Pharaoh will find you. Your life is governed by the rhythm of the river. You don't have a calendar. You have the Nile. There are 3 seasons, Akadiyao, the inundation, when the river floods the land, and you are sent to work for the Pharaoh. Peret, the growing season, when the waters recede, leaving behind a thick, black, fertile silt. And Shemu, the harvest season, when the sun beats down and the grain turns gold. During Peret, your work begins. You wade into the cool, thick mud, your feet sinking with each step. You use a simple wooden plow, maybe pulled by an ox if your village is fortunate to cut furrows into the earth. Then comes the sowing. You walk the fields, casting seeds of emmer wheat and barley from a basket slung over your shoulder. It's a quiet, hopeful act, but one shadowed by anxiety. Will the flood have been high enough? Will the soil hold its moisture? The sun is your constant, unforgiving companion. You wear a simple linen kilt and nothing else. Your skin turns dark and leathery. Your back, perpetually bent, aches with a deep, familiar pain. You dig irrigation ditches by hand, guiding the precious water to the far corners of your plot. You pull weeds, you chase away birds, and you pray to Renenutet, the cobra goddess of the harvest, that your crops will be spared from locusts or blight. Then comes the harvest Shemu. It is the most intense time of year. You and your entire family are in the fields from before dawn until after dusk. You cut the stalks of grain with a curved wooden sickle, its flint blade sharpened against a stone. The work is fast and repetitive. Your hands become blistered and calloused. The dry stalks scratch your arms. The air is thick with chaff and dust. Once the grain is cut, it is threshed, beaten by the hooves of cattle or donkeys, walking in circles, to separate the grain from the stalk. Then you toss it into the air, letting the wind carry away the lighter chaff. It's a dusty, exhausting process, and after all that work, after months of sweat and worry, you do not get to keep most of it. The Pharaoh's scribes arrive to measure your harvest. They are clean, well-fed men who have never touched soil. They calculate the state's portion of tax that always seems to be more than you expected. You watch as your grain, your family's survival, is loaded onto barges and sent away to the temples and palaces. What's left is yours to live on until the river rises again. Some jobs provide food. Others provide honor. Your job provides a smell that arrives 3 minutes before you do and lingers for 10 minutes after you've left. You are a tanner, an essential craftsman in a society that needs leather for sandals, shields, and chariot harnesses. You are also an outcast. Your workshop is not in the center of the village. It is on the outskirts, downwind, as far away from polite society as possible. And for good reason. The process of turning raw animal hide into usable leather is a festival of filth. It begins with the skins delivered to you stiff with dried blood and swarming with flies. You scrape them clean of flesh and fat with a bronze knife, a greasy, repulsive task. Then comes the soaking. To loosen the hair, you submerge the hides in a vat of water mixed with a substance that makes even the toughest stomachs turn stale urine. The ammonia breaks down the fibers and makes the hair slip off easily. The vat, which sits in the sun, bubbles with a stench so powerful it feels like a physical blow. You work with a cloth tied over your nose, but it does little to help. After the hair is removed, the hide must be softened. This is done by pounding it with mallets and stretching it, or by another, even more disgusting method, soaking it in a solution of animal dung. The enzymes in the feces break down the remaining proteins, making the leather pliable. You spend your days elbow-deep in substances that other people pay to have carried away. Your hands are permanently stained, your skin cracked and raw from the constant exposure to caustic materials. The smell clings to you. It's in your hair, your clothes, your food. When you walk through the market, people give you a wide berth. Children hold their noses. You are ritually and socially unclean. You cannot enter temples during certain ceremonies. You eat alone. And yet Egypt cannot function without you. The soldiers need your leather for their shields. The scribes need it for their scroll cases. The Pharaoh himself wears sandals crafted from the material you prepared. You are the foundation of 1,000 essential goods, but you are treated like the dirt beneath them. Your work is vital, your existence shunned. You live in a paradox, creating the materials of civilization while living on its foul-smelling margins. The reliefs on temple walls show soldiers as heroes marching in perfect formation, their gazes noble, their bodies strong. You know the truth. Being an infantryman in the Pharaoh's army is less about glory and more about endless marching questionable food and the constant dull fear of a bronze-tipped spear. Your life is not your own. You were likely conscripted, pulled from your village, to serve a term of several years. Your training is brutal. You march for miles under the desert sun, carrying a heavy hide shield, a spear, and a bronze battle axe. You learn to fight in disciplined formations, to obey the orders of your commander without question, to kill without hesitation. The barracks are crowded and dirty. Disease spreads quickly. Dysentery, fevers, infections. You are more likely to die from a sickness in camp than from an enemy blade. Your rations are simple bread beer and a handful of dried vegetables. Sometimes you get meat, but it's often the toughest cuts boiled into a bland stew. You spend your days drilling, sparring with wooden weapons, and maintaining your gear. A dull spear tip or a cracked shield could mean your death. When you are sent on a campaign, perhaps south into Nubia or east into the Levant, the real hardship begins. You march across endless stretches of desert. Your water is rationed. Your sandals fall apart. The sand gets into everything. At night, you sleep on the hard ground, wrapped in a thin cloak with the sounds of the desert and the nervous whispers of the men around you as your only companions. Battle is chaos. It is the roar of voices, the clash of bronze on bronze, the thud of arrows hitting shields. You stand in the front line, a wall of shields locked together, spears bristling forward. You are trained not to break, not to run. You push forward, stabbing, shoving your heart pounding in your ears. You see men fall, your friends, your neighbors from your village. There is no time to mourn. You just step over them and keep fighting. If you survive, you might share in the spoils of war, a captured weapon, a piece of jewelry, or perhaps an enslaved person to take home. But more often than not, you return with nothing but scars and memories you wish you could forget. You are the fist of the Pharaoh, the instrument of his will. But you are also expendable. There are always more young men in the villages to take your place. You fight for the glory of Egypt, but the glory belongs to the Pharaoh. You just get the dust, the blood, and the long walk home. Cleanliness is next to godliness. In ancient Egypt, a principle you are intimately familiar with because your entire life revolves around making other people clean while you remain elbow-deep in filth. You are a fuller, a laundry worker, and your job is to wash the linens of the wealthy, the priests, the nobles, the scribes. It is a grueling, thankless, and surprisingly chemical-filled existence. You work in a communal laundry, a large open-air space with massive stone vats. There is no soap as we know it. Your primary cleaning agent is natron, a natural salt mixed with ash. For tough stains, especially on white linen, you use something else, stale human urine. The ammonia acts as a powerful bleaching agent. Large jars are often left in public places for people to contribute, and it is your job to collect them. The process is relentless. You toss the dirty linens, tunics, dresses, bedsheets into a vat filled with water and your cleaning mixture. Then you get in. Barefoot, you stomp and tread on the clothes for hours, pounding the dirt out with your feet. The water is cold, the natron stings your skin, and the smell of fermented urine is nauseating. Your legs ache, your back burns, but you keep stomping. After the washing comes the rinsing. You haul the heavy wet linens to the banks of the Nile, or a clean canal, and rinse them again and again. Then you wring them out by hand, twisting the fabric until your knuckles are white and your wrists scream in protest. Finally, the linens are laid out on bushes or hot stones to dry under the sun, where you must guard them against birds and thieves. For very fine garments, you might use a club-like piece of wood to beat them against a stone, a process that whitens the fabric but also wears it out. This is a job performed almost exclusively by women and the lowest class of laborers. The pay is meager. You are paid in grain or bread, just enough to survive. You spend your days surrounded by the dirt of others, your hands permanently raw, your senses assaulted by the harsh smell of your own tools. You are creating the purity that society values so highly, but you are considered one of its most unclean workers. At the end of the day, You return home smelling of ammonia and sweat to wash your own family's single set of clothes in the same tired way. Your world is a spinning circle of wet clay. From sunrise to sunset, you sit hunched over a simple hand-turned potter's wheel, your hands covered in the cool, gritty slip of Nile mud. You are a potter, a creator of the vessels that hold Egypt's food, its water, its wine, and even the ashes of its dead. It sounds artistic, but in reality, it is a life of endless repetition. Your workshop is a simple, open-sided hut to keep the dust from overwhelming you, though it never really works. The air is always thick, with the fine powder of dried clay, which you breathe into your lungs day after day. You begin by preparing the clay, mixing it with water, sand, or straw, and kneading it with your feet until it has the perfect consistency. It's heavy back-breaking work. Then you sit at your wheel. For hours, your body is locked in the same position, leaning forward, your hands guiding the spinning clay. You make beer jugs, water pots, cooking bowls, plates. The shapes are simple, functional, and you have to make hundreds of them, all nearly identical. Your master or the temple administrator has given you a quota. You must meet it. There is no room for creative expression, no time for a beautifully unique vase. There is only the demand for more. More bowls for the workers at the quarry, more jars for the temple's oil stores. The heat is a constant enemy. You work beside the kiln, a massive clay oven where your pots are fired. When it is lit, it radiates a heat so intense it feels like standing next to the sun. You carefully stack the fragile, unfired pots inside, praying that none of them crack or explode during the firing, wasting hours of your work. Your hands are your most important tool, but they are also a roadmap of your labor. The clay dries and cracks your skin. Small cuts from sharp stones in the mud become infected. Your fingernails are permanently caked with grit, and you are always poor. A single pot sells for a pittance. You are paid in grain enough to feed your family, but never enough to get ahead. You are a craftsman, but you are at the bottom of the social ladder. You watch your creations being carried away, filled with fine wine for a noble's feast, or used to make offerings in a grand temple. They are part of a world you will never enter. Your contribution is essential, but invisible. You are the maker of the containers, but your own life feels empty. And tomorrow, you will wake up and do it all again, knead, spin, fire, lost in the rhythm of the wheel. Before a single word of a sacred text can be written, before a scribe can record the Pharaoh's decree, someone has to wade into the swamp. That someone is you. You are a papyrus harvester, and your workplace is the marshy, overgrown banks of the Nile, a place of stunning beauty and hidden sudden death. Your day starts at dawn when the water is cool and the air is thick with mist. You push a small, flat-bottomed skiff made of reeds into the dense thickets of papyrus that tower over your head. The stalks are thick green and taller than a man. Your job is to cut them at the base, just below the waterline. This is not as simple as it sounds. You are standing waist-deep in murky water. You cannot see what lurks beneath the surface. Crocodiles, silent and ancient, are a constant threat. One moment you are reaching for a stalk, the next you feel a pressure on your leg, and it is too late. Hippos, though they look slow and docile, are fiercely territorial and responsible for more deaths than any other animal in Egypt. A protective mother with a calf nearby will not hesitate to capsize your boat and crush you. And then there are the snakes, the water cobras that hunt among the reeds. Not to mention the parasites in the water, the bilharzia that enters through your skin and slowly destroys your internal organs. Every day in the swamp is a gamble. You use a small curved bronze knife to saw through the tough, fibrous base of the papyrus stalks. The edges of the reeds are sharp. They slice your hands and arms. You bundle the harvested stalks, tying them together with vines, and load them onto your skiff. The work is wet, dirty, and exhausting. By midday, the sun is merciless, reflecting off the water and baking you from above and below. Swarms of insects buzz around your head. At the end of the day, You guide your heavily laden skiff back to the village, where the papyrus will be sold to workshops that will peel it, press it, and turn it into the paper that fuels an empire's bureaucracy and preserves its stories. You, however, will never learn to read or write what is put on that paper. You are paid little for your dangerous work. You are seen as a low-class laborer, someone who lives and works in the wild, untamed margins of the civilized world. You are the very first link in the chain of knowledge, but you are granted none of it. You just know the feel of the mud, the sting of a cut, and the constant watchful silence of the swamp. The Nile is Egypt's highway, and you are its beast of burden. You are a bargeman, one of the countless men who pulls rows and hauls the heavy cargo boats that are the lifeblood of the kingdom. Your work is a monotonous cycle of muscle sweat and the slow, unending rhythm of the river. Your vessel is a wide, flat-bottomed boat, crudely built from acacia wood. It is loaded with grain from the farming villages, massive stone blocks from the southern quarries, or fine pottery from the city workshops. Your job is to move it either upriver against the current or downriver with it. Going downstream is easier. You use long oars working in unison with a dozen other men. The captain, a man with a voice like gravel and a temper to match shouts the rhythm. You row until your shoulders burn and your hands are raw with blisters. The sun beats down on your bare back. There is no shade, no escape. Going upstream is a different kind of hell. You cannot row against the Nile's powerful current. Instead, you and your crew are on the riverbank, harnessed like oxen pulling the boat with thick papyrus ropes. You lean into the harness, your feet sinking into the hot sand or thick mud. You pull for miles, your body straining against the immense weight of the barge. Progress is agonizingly slow. The rope digs into your shoulders, leaving deep, painful grooves. Life on the barge is cramped. You sleep on the open deck, exposed to the elements. Your food is the same as any laborer's hard bread and weak beer. You are paid a pittance. The real profit goes to the merchant who owns the cargo or the temple that commissioned the stone. You are just the muscle. Danger is always present. A sudden gust of wind can send the boat crashing into the riverbank. Shifting sandbars can ground the vessel for days. And then there are the crocodiles and hippos, always watching from the shallows. The captain is often brutal, using a whip to enforce discipline or to punish a man who slacks off. Fights break out among the crew, fueled by exhaustion, frustration, and too much cheap beer. You see the great monuments of Egypt from a distance, the temples of Karnak, the pyramids of Giza, but you never get to enter them. You are the man who delivers the stone but never sees the temple. You are the man who transports the grain but never eats at the feast. Your life is the river, a long, slow journey that never truly reaches a destination. While the farmer waits for the grain to grow, you go out to meet your food on its own terms. You are a hunter, a man of the marshes and deserts, a purveyor of the rare luxury of meat. But your life is far from the noble sport depicted on tomb walls. It is a precarious existence of patience, danger, and constant uncertainty. Your domain is the wild edge of Egypt. In the Nile Delta, you hunt among the reeds for waterfowl, ducks, geese, herons. You use a throw stick, a curved piece of wood hurled with precision to break a bird's wing in mid-flight. Or you set traps, intricate nets made of flax, and wait for hours in silence for a flock to land. You are not alone in the marshes. You share the space with crocodiles, snakes, and swarms of insects. A misstep can land you in deep water or in the jaws of a predator. You often bring a cat or a trained dog on your skiff, not just for company, but to retrieve the birds you bring down. In the desert, the prey is different. You track gazelles, ibex, and wild hares. These animals are fast, and the terrain is unforgiving. You rely on your knowledge of the land, your ability to read tracks in the sand, and your skill with a bow and arrow. A successful hunt might take days of silent stalking and waiting. Your arrows are tipped with flint, not bronze. Metal is too precious to lose on a missed shot. Success is never guaranteed. You might return empty-handed after days in the desert, your water skin empty, your body scorched by the sun. And even when you do make a kill, you must butcher it quickly and carry the heavy carcass back to the village before hyenas or vultures claim it. The meat you bring back is a valuable commodity. Some of it will feed your family. The rest is traded in the market for grain beer or tools. A fine gazelle might even be sold to a noble's household for a good price. But you are not a respected member of society. You are a man of the wild, seen as rough and uncivilized. You live on the fringes, your hands stained with blood, your skin weathered by the elements. You are a master of survival, reading the wind, understanding the habits of animals, and moving with a silence that city dwellers have long forgotten. But your life is a constant gamble. One missed shot, one wrong step, and the hunter becomes the hunted. 3:13. The Canal Digger. The Nile gives life, but only if you guide it. Your job is to carve its veins into the earth. You are a canal digger, part of the legion of laborers, responsible for maintaining the vast network of irrigation channels that makes agriculture possible in a desert land. Your work is wet, muddy, and utterly exhausting. You work in a team using simple tools, a wooden hoe to break up the earth, and a basket to carry it away. You stand in mud up to your knees all day, digging out the silt and sand that clogs the canals after the annual flood. The mud is heavy and thick. It pulls at your feet, making every step a struggle. The sun is relentless. There is no shade in the open fields. You work under its full glare, your back bent, your muscles aching. You are often shirtless, your skin exposed to the sun and the bites of insects that breed in the stagnant water. The water itself is a hazard teeming with snails that carry the debilitating disease schistosomiasis, which slowly destroys your internal organs. You know the risks, but you have no choice. Overseers watch your progress, making sure the canals are dug to the correct depth and width. The work is crucial. If the canals are not cleared, water will not reach the distant fields, and the crops will fail. The fate of the village rests on your aching back. Sometimes you are tasked with building a shut-off, the simple, crane-like device used to lift water from the canal into the fields. It consists of a long pole balanced on a pivot with a bucket on one end and a heavy counterweight of mud on the other. You spend your day lifting and lowering the bucket, a repetitive, mind-numbing motion that leaves your arms and shoulders screaming in protest. You are paid in rations, just like any other state laborer. Your work ensures that the granaries of the pharaoh are full, that the temples have offerings, and that the nobles have bread on their tables. You are the foundation of Egypt's wealth, but you are treated as little more than the mud you dig. At the end of the day, you return home caked in dried mud, your body sore, your feet raw. You have spent your day in the life-giving water of the Nile, but you feel drained of life yourself. And tomorrow, there is always another canal to dig. You live in a house of gold and lapis lazuli, but none of it is yours. You are a servant in the household of a wealthy noble or a high priest. Your life is a delicate dance of obedience, invisibility, and constant quiet fear. Your day begins before anyone else in the house is awake. You light the cooking fires, fetch the water, and begin preparing the morning meal. You move silently through the corridors, your bare feet making no sound on the cool stone floors. You must be present, but unseen. Your duties are endless. You serve food at meals, standing by, with a fan, to keep the flies away from your master's plate. You clean the rooms, sweep the floors, and change the linens. You prepare your mistress's cosmetics, grinding malachite for her eyeshadow, and helping her with her intricate wig. You attend to the children, playing with them, teaching them, and disciplining them when their parents cannot be bothered. You have no personal freedom. Your time is not your own. You are on call 24 hours a day. If your master wants a drink in the middle of the night, you must fetch it. If your mistress is bored, you must entertain her. You are property, and your life is subject to the whims of those you serve. A mistake can have severe consequences. Spill a jug of wine, and you might be beaten. Speak out of turn, and you could be sold. The master of the house holds the power of life and death over you. You learn to read moods, to anticipate needs, to make yourself so useful that you become indispensable, but never so visible that you become a nuisance. You live amidst luxury, but you sleep on a simple mat in a small, windowless room, often shared with other servants. You eat the leftovers from the master's table, if there are any. You hear the secrets of the household, the arguments, the affairs, the political plots, but you must pretend you have heard nothing. Knowledge is dangerous. Some servants are treated with kindness, becoming trusted members of the family. Others are treated with cruelty and contempt. Your fate depends entirely on the character of your master. You may have been born into this life, or you may have been captured in war. Either way, there is little hope of escape. Your only ambition is to survive, to avoid punishment, and to find small moments of peace in a life that belongs to someone else. You are the provider of Egypt's most essential beverage, not water, but beer, and your life is a cycle of grain heat and fermentation. You are a brewer, and your work, while vital, is hot, smelly, and physically demanding. Your brewery is a noisy, chaotic place. You start with barley, which is soaked in water until it sprouts. Then it is crushed by hand or foot into a coarse meal. This meal is mixed with water to form a thick dough, which is lightly baked into loaves of bread. This isn't bread for eating, it's bread for brewing. The real work happens at the vats. You crumble the bread into large ceramic jars, add more water and sometimes dates or honey for flavor and to aid fermentation. Then you wait. But while you wait, the hard labor continues. You must prepare the next batch, clean the jars, and maintain the fires. The stirring is the most grueling part. You use a long wooden paddle to agitate the thick, bubbling mash in the vats. The air is thick with the sweet, yeasty smell of fermentation, a scent that clings to your clothes and hair. The work is hot, done over open fires that heat the vats to the perfect temperature for the yeast to do its work. After a few days, the beer is ready. It's not the clear, carbonated liquid of the modern world. It's a thick, cloudy, nutritious sludge, more like a drinkable porridge. It must be strained through cloth or sieves to remove the chunks of bread and grain. This is a messy, sticky process. You are not making a luxury product. You are making the daily fuel for an entire civilization. The beer you produce will be used as rations for the pyramid builders, as offerings in the temples, and as the staple drink in every household. Your quota is high, and the demand is constant. The brewery is a place of constant motion and heat. You are always sweating, always covered in a fine film of grain dust and sticky wort. You taste the beer to check its progress, so you are in a state of mild, perpetual intoxication. Your work is crucial. Without beer, the workforce would falter. But you are a simple laborer, paid in the very product you create, living one batch at a time. The great temples and palaces of Egypt are made of stone, but the rest of Egypt, the homes, the walls, the workshops, is made of mud. You're mud. You are a brickmaker, and your job is one of the most fundamental and filthy in the kingdom. Your workplace is the bank of the Nile, where the rich, dark silt is plentiful. Your tools are your own 2 feet and hands. You begin by mixing the Nile mud with water, using your feet to stomp it into a thick, heavy paste. Then you add a binding agent, chopped straw or sand, and continue to mix the cool mud, squelching between your toes. Once the mixture is ready, you press it into a rectangular wooden mold. You pack it in tightly, scrape the top smooth, and then carefully lift the mold away, leaving a perfect wet gray brick on the ground. Then you do it again, and again, and again, all day long. Your work is a rhythm of bending, packing, and lifting. Your back is in a constant state of protest. You work in teams, an assembly line of human machines, turning the earth itself into the building blocks of civilization. The bricks are left to bake in the relentless Egyptian sun. For days they lie in neat rows, slowly turning from dark gray to a pale, dusty brown. You must turn them occasionally to ensure they dry evenly. If it rains, a rare but catastrophic event, your entire week's work can dissolve back into mud. Once the bricks are hard, they must be stacked and transported. They are heavy and abrasive. Your hands become calloused and cut. You load them onto sledges or onto the backs of donkeys to be taken to construction sites throughout the kingdom. You are at the absolute bottom of the construction hierarchy. The stonemasons who carve the grand reliefs look down on you. The architects who design the temples do not know your name. But without your bricks, there would be no houses for the people, no walls to protect the villages, no granaries to store the food. You spend your life covered in mud. It's under your fingernails and your hair, and caked onto your skin. You are literally made of the same earth you shape. Your work is monotonous, exhausting, and utterly essential. You are not building monuments of eternity, but the humble, fragile homes of everyday life. Every morning, you greet the god Sobek, the crocodile-headed lord of the Nile, not with prayers in a temple, but on his own turf. You are a fisherman, and your life is a constant, quiet negotiation with the river and the creatures that dwell within it. You pull your small papyrus skiff into the shallows before the sun has risen. The water is calm, the air cool. This is the best time to cast your nets. Your nets are made of flax, woven by your wife or daughters, and weighted with small clay stones. You cast them out with a practiced flick of the wrist, letting them sink into the murky depths. Then you wait. Sometimes the wait is short. You feel the tug and pull of fish, trapped in the mesh, tilapia, catfish, Nile perch. You haul the heavy net in its contents, flopping and gasping on the floor of your boat. This is a good day. But many days are not good. The nets come up empty, or worse, they come up tangled and torn on a submerged log or rock. You must then spend hours painstakingly repairing them. Your family's dinner depends on it. And there is always danger. The skiff is fragile. A sudden strike from a hippopotamus could splinter it in seconds. Crocodiles are a constant silent presence, their eyes just visible above the water's surface. You never trail your hand in the water. You never stand too close to the edge. You have seen other fishermen disappear. You also use other methods. A simple line with a bronze hook baited with a worm or a piece of bread, or a spear, which you use in the shallows, your eyes scanning the water for the dark shape of a fish. This requires incredible patience and a steady hand. The fish you catch are the lifeblood of your family. You eat what you need and trade the rest in the village market for grain beer or a new tool. A large perch can be a valuable prize, but your profession is a humble one. You are not a farmer with land or a craftsman with a workshop. You are a man of the river, your fortunes rising and falling with the catch of the day. You return home at dusk, smelling of fish and river water. Your hands sore from hauling nets, your skin burned by the sun's reflection off the water. You are grateful for what the Nile has provided, but you are always aware of what it can take away. You wear the clean linen of a priest, but your belly is often as empty as a farmer's after the tax collectors have gone. You are not one of the high priests of Karnak or Heliopolis who live in luxury and advise the pharaoh. You are a simple Wab priest, a ritual purifier, serving a small, dusty temple in a remote village. Your life is one of rigid purity and routine. You must bathe in sacred water multiple times a day. You must shave your entire body, including your head and eyebrows, to remain ritually clean. You cannot eat fish or wear wool, as they are considered impure. Your life is a constant performance of sanctity. Your duties begin at dawn. You are the one who awakens the statue of the god in the temple's inner sanctum. You open the shrine, clean the statue with oils, clothe it in fresh linen, and present it with offerings of food and drink, bread, beer, meat, and wine. These are not symbolic offerings. The Egyptians believed the god literally consumed the spiritual essence of the food. Throughout the day, you lead rituals, recite hymns, and burn incense. Villagers come to you with their troubles. A woman who cannot conceive a farmer, whose cow is sick, a man tormented by bad dreams. They bring you small offerings, a loaf of bread, a handful of vegetables, and you are expected to interpret the will of the gods for them. You consult omens, perhaps, by casting sticks or observing the behavior of a sacred animal. You provide them with amulets for protection and spells to ward off evil spirits. You are a respected figure, a link between the mortal world and the divine. But you are also poor. The temple's income depends entirely on the meager offerings of the villagers. When the harvest is bad, the offerings dwindle. You are expected to maintain the temple, repair the walls, and keep the rituals going even when your own stomach is empty. You are literate, a rare skill, but you spend your days copying the same sacred texts over and over, not for knowledge, but for ritual preservation. You live a life of immense spiritual responsibility, but little material comfort. You are a servant of the gods, but you live a life as humble and precarious as the people you serve. At night, you lock the god's shrine, your final duty of the day, and return to your simple hut, praying that the deity you serve will be generous tomorrow. Your world is not defined by the river, but by the dry, scrubby lands that border it. You are a herdsman, and your days are spent in the constant company of cattle, sheep, or goats, and the vast, aching silence of the Egyptian landscape. Your life is a nomadic one, a slow, endless search for pasture. You follow the seasonal growth, moving your herd from the receding floodplains to the higher, desert wadis, where patches of grass might be found. You walk for miles every day, under the sun, your only tools, a long wooden staff, and a water skin slung over your shoulder. You are a master of the land. You know where to find water, which plants are safe for your animals to eat, and how to read the signs of an approaching sandstorm. You are also a veterinarian, tending to sick animals, helping with difficult births, and protecting your herd from the dangers of the wild. Predators are a constant threat. Hyenas and jackals stalk the edges of the herd at night, looking for a weak calf or a stray sheep. You sleep lightly, your ears tuned to any unnatural sound. A sharpened staff and a well-trained dog are your only defenses. There is also the danger of rustlers, other nomadic groups who might try to steal your animals. A skirmish in the desert is a lonely, brutal affair with no witnesses and no law. Your life is one of isolation. For weeks at a time, you might not see another human being besides the other herdsmen in your group. Your companions are the animals. You know each one by its markings, its temperament. They are your wealth, your responsibility, and in many ways, your family. You live off the herd, drinking milk, eating cheese, and occasionally slaughtering an animal for meat. You trade animals in the village markets for grain and tools. The wealth of many a noble or temple was measured in the number of cattle they owned, but you are the one who keeps that wealth alive. It is a hard, lonely life. Your skin is weathered and dark. Your feet are tough as leather. You speak more to your animals than to people. But there is a fierce independence in your existence. You are not tied to the mud of the fields or the dust of the quarry. You are a man of the open spaces, your life dictated by the needs of your herd and the rhythm of the seasons. You are a whisper on the wind, a solitary figure moving across an ancient silent land. Beyond the temples and the tombs, where the black, fertile land of Egypt gives way to the red, lifeless land of the desert, there is a fort made of mud brick and silence. That is your home. You are a soldier, a border guard tasked with protecting the edges of the kingdom from nomadic raiders and foreign incursions. Your life is a study in monotony and sudden, heart-stopping terror. You are stationed at a remote outpost, perhaps on the edge of the Sinai or deep in the Nubian desert. For days, even weeks, nothing happens. You stand watch on the high walls, your eyes scanning the empty horizon. The sun beats down. The wind blows sand against the walls. The silence is absolute. Your duties are simple. You patrol the perimeter. You maintain your weapons. You stand guard. You are part of a small garrison of men, and your only companions are the other soldiers, the scorpions, and your own thoughts. You play games with dice made of bone to pass the time. You tell the same stories over and over. You drink your ration of beer and wish you were somewhere else. Food is scarce and repetitive, brought in by occasional supply caravans. You live on dried bread, dates, and salted meat. Fresh water comes from a deep well within the fort, the most valuable thing for miles in any direction. The boredom is a kind of psychological warfare, but you can never relax completely. You are the eyes and ears of the pharaoh in these forgotten lands. You must always be vigilant. A small cloud of dust on the horizon could be a trade caravan, or it could be a party of Libyan raiders. When an attack comes, it is swift and brutal. The raiders are fast appearing out of the desert heat like ghosts. The alarm is sounded. You grab your spear and shield and rush to the walls. Arrows fly. Men shout. The silence is shattered by the clash of bronze. These skirmishes are not the grand orderly battles depicted on temple walls. They are desperate, chaotic fights for survival. If you are captured, your fate is grim. If you are wounded, the nearest physician is a week's march away. You learn to be self-sufficient, to be ruthless, and to trust no one but the man standing next to you. You are the thin line protecting the wealth and stability of Egypt. You are the reason the trade routes remain open and the villages along the Nile can sleep in peace. But you are forgotten. No one sings songs about the guard who stood watch in the heat for 3 years. Your only reward is survival, and the dream of one day returning to the green, familiar banks of the Nile. An army marches on its feet, and its feet march in your sandals. You are not a tanner, subjected to the foulest smells, nor a warrior facing the enemy's spear. You occupy a space in between a life of quiet, repetitive, and crucial craftsmanship. In your small, dusty workshop, you are surrounded by strips of leather and dried papyrus reeds. Your job is to make the footwear that will carry the pharaoh's legions across the burning sands of the desert. Your hands, which should be soft from working with such materials, are instead tough and calloused. You spend your day cutting the thick leather with a bronze knife, punching holes with a sharp awl, and weaving the papyrus straps that will hold the sandal to the foot. Each pair must be identical strong and made to a precise standard. There is no room for artistry here, only function. The demand is endless. A new campaign in Nubia means thousands of pairs are needed. A parade in Thebes requires footwear for the entire garrison. You work to a quota set by a military scribe who visits your workshop weekly. He inspects your work with a critical eye. A weak strap, a poorly cut sole, and he will reject the entire batch, leaving you unpaid and in disgrace. You sit on a low stool, the scent of leather and dust filling the air. Your back aches from leaning over your work. Your fingers are pricked and sore from the endless stitching. Outside, you hear the sounds of the village, but in your workshop there is only the rhythmic scrape of your knife and the pull of thread through leather. You are not a soldier, but you are part of the war machine. You will never see the battles, the long marches, or the foreign lands where your sandals will walk. But you know that the strength of the army depends in some small way on the strength of your stitching. You are providing the foundation for empire, one pair of humble, sturdy sandals at a time. It is a life without glory, without recognition, but one of quiet, essential purpose. And as you finish one sandal, you simply pick up the materials to start the next. The army is always marching. You are close to power, so close you can smell the expensive incense drifting from the royal cabin. But your world is one of splintered wood and aching muscles. You are an oarsman on the pharaoh's royal barge, a vessel of stunning beauty and divine presence. The boat is gilded. Its sails are of the finest linen, and a cabin adorned with gold and ebony houses the living God himself. Your position is one of honor, but it is an honor paid for in sweat. You sit on a hard wooden bench with 24 other men, all chosen for their strength and endurance. Your hands are wrapped around a heavy wooden oar. Your back is bare to the sun. Your world is reduced to the man in front of you and the rhythmic chant of the coxswain. He sets the pace, a relentless, steady beat that you must follow without fail. You row in perfect unison. The splash of the oars hitting the water is a single, powerful sound. You cannot falter. You cannot slow down. The eyes of the pharaoh, or at least his retinue of priests and nobles, are upon you. To break the rhythm is not just a mistake. It is an act of disrespect to a god. The physical toll is immense. Your shoulders burn, your back screams, and the muscles in your arms feel as if they are being torn apart. But you show no pain. Your face is a mask of stoic determination. You see the wonders of Egypt pass by from a unique perspective. The great temples, the bustling cities, the humble villages along the Nile. But you do not have time to admire them. Your gaze is fixed on the oar, on the water, on the rhythm. You are part of the spectacle, but you are not allowed to enjoy it. You are a living engine propelling a vessel of state. When the barge docks, you do not disembark with the nobles. You remain on the lower decks, cleaning the boat, repairing the oars, and waiting for the next journey. Your rations are better than a common laborer's, but your freedom is just as limited. You are a privileged prisoner bound to the oar and the will of the pharaoh. You are a testament to his power. Your synchronized, unending labor, a reflection of the perfect order he represents. But as you fall asleep on the hard deck, your body racked with pain, you know that this honor is a heavy one. In the great quarries of Aswan, where men carve obelisks from the living rockstone, is not the only thing that is moved. Water is life, and you are the one who carries it. You are a water carrier, a boy or a young man, and your job is one of endless grueling loops. Your day starts at the river's edge. You fill 2 heavy ceramic jars with water from the Nile, balance them on a wooden yoke that rests across your shoulders, and begin the long walk up to the quarry. The path is steep and dusty. The sun is already gaining strength. The weight of the water pulls at your shoulders, and the yoke digs into your neck, leaving a permanent raw mark. You arrive at the quarry, a vast open scar in the landscape, echoing with the clang of bronze tools on hard granite. The air is thick with stone dust that clogs your throat and stings your eyes. Men are everywhere, their bodies dark with sweat and dust, their muscles straining as they chip and haul the massive stones. They work in a heat that would fell a lesser man, and they are always thirsty. You move among them, a mobile oasis. You pour water into their cupped hands or into the small clay cups they carry. They drink greedily, gratefully, the water spilling down their chins and turning the dust on their chests to mud. They barely look at you. You are not a person to them. You are a function. You are the brief, blessed relief from a burning thirst. There is no time to rest. As soon as your jars are empty, you must turn and make the long journey back to the Nile. Up and down all day long. The sun climbs to its peak, and the heat becomes a physical force pressing down on you. You feel dizzy, your own thirst a constant aching presence. But you cannot drink too much of the water you carry. It is not for you. It is for the men who are cutting stone for the Pharaoh's glory. You see the cost of this work up close. You see the injuries from slipped chisels, the exhaustion in the men's eyes, the bodies of those who collapse from heat stroke. You are a witness to the human price of building an empire. Your role is humble, but it is essential. Without the water you carry, the work would stop. The men would die. The obelisks would never rise. You are the invisible current that keeps the great machine of the quarry running one painful, waterlogged step at a time. Not all herds are of cattle or sheep. Your flock is loud, bad-tempered, and destined for the feast tables of the gods. You are a goose herder, responsible for tending the sacred geese of a temple or a great noble's estate. It is a job that sounds simple, but is a daily exercise in frustration and vigilance. Your charges are not docile creatures. They are aggressive, noisy, and prone to wandering. Your day is spent following them along the muddy banks of a canal or in a grassy enclosure, using a long stick to guide them and keep them from straying into a farmer's field or a predator's path. The honking is incessant, a chaotic chorus that fills your ears from sunrise to sunset. You spend your day shouting at them, coaxing them, and occasionally dodging a nip from a particularly bold gander. Your main duty is protection. You must watch for jackals lurking in the scrubland or birds of prey circling overhead. A lost goose is not just a lost bird. It is a lost offering, a mark against you that could result in punishment or the loss of your job. The work is lonely and monotonous. You sit for hours under the sun, watching the geese peck and preen. You have little contact with other people. Your companions are the birds, the buzzing insects, and the slow-moving water of the canal. You learn the personality of your flock, which ones are the leaders, which are the troublemakers. These are not ordinary geese. They are being fattened for sacrifice, or for the lavish banquets of the elite. They are fed a special diet of grain, and their health is your responsibility. If a goose falls ill, you must tend to it with herbal remedies. If it dies, you must answer to the temple priests or the estate steward. It is a life of immense responsibility, but little prestige. You are the caretaker of the god's food, but you yourself eat simple fare. You ensure the geese are fat and healthy for the feast, while you remain thin and weathered. You live on the edge of the sacred world, a humble servant to the appetites of both gods and men. At night, you secure the flock in a pen, and even in your sleep, you hear the faint echo of their honking. Immortality has a price, and it is paid for with a salt that burns. You are the one who harvests it. You are a natron collector, a laborer, sent to the desolate dry lake beds of places like Wadi el Natrun. It is here that the sacred salt used in mummification and purification rituals is found, and your job is to scrape it from the earth. The landscape is otherworldly. The ground is a white, cracked crust of crystalline salt that glitters under the harsh sun. The air is dry and hot, and the glare from the white ground is blinding. You wear a loincloth, and nothing else. There is no shade, no water, no life. You work with a simple bronze or wooden spade. You break up the hard salt crust and shovel the chunks into reed baskets. The work is physically demanding, but the real toll is on your skin. The natron is caustic. It pulls the moisture from your body, leaving your hands and feet cracked, bleeding, and in constant pain. Small cuts become searing wounds. The fine salt dust gets into your eyes, your nose, your lungs. You are part of a team of workers, likely convicts or conscripted laborers overseen by guards. You live in a temporary camp, a collection of crude shelters that offer little protection from the elements. Your food and water are brought in by caravan and strictly rationed. The work is relentless, from dawn until the sun becomes too unbearable. The natron you collect is a vital component of Egyptian religion. It is the substance that will dry the bodies of the pharaohs, preserving them for eternity. It is used to purify temples, to cleanse offerings, and in spells to ward off evil. It is the key to the afterlife. But for you, it is a source of daily torment. You watch as baskets, heavy with the white salt, are loaded onto donkeys to begin their long journey to the embalming workshops of Thebes. You are providing the material for eternal life, but your own life feels disposable, consumed by the very substance you harvest. At the end of the day, your body aches, and your skin feels as if it's on fire. You look out at the white, silent expanse and know that tomorrow you will do it all again, digging the dust of preservation from a dead land. You walk in the house of a god, but you are not there to pray. You are there to clean. You are a temple cleaner, a low-ranking member of the priesthood, and your sacred duty is one of endless, repetitive, and meticulous maintenance. Your life is governed by the laws of ritual purity. Your day begins in the cool darkness before dawn. You must purify yourself bathing in a sacred lake and dressing in clean white linen. Then you enter the vast, silent temple complex. Your job is to ensure that the house of the god is spotless, a perfect vessel for the divine presence. You sweep the massive stone floors of the courtyards and halls with a palm leaf broom. You dust the columns, wipe down the altars, and clean the offering tables. The scale of the temple is overwhelming. You are a tiny figure in a forest of stone. The work is physically demanding, requiring you to carry heavy buckets of water and scrub endlessly at the pavement. But the real pressure is not physical, it is spiritual. You must perform your duties with absolute reverence. You cannot enter the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies, where the God statue resides. That is reserved for the high priests. But you must clean the areas around it, moving with a quiet grace, careful not to disturb any sacred objects or make any unnecessary noise. A misplaced broom or a loud cough could be seen as an act of disrespect to the god. You spend your day in the shadow of immense statues of pharaohs and deities. Their stone eyes seem to watch your every move. The air is thick with the lingering scent of yesterday's incense and offerings. You are surrounded by a world of sacred power, but you are on its lowest rung. You are not a scribe who reads the sacred texts, or a high priest who speaks with the gods. You are the one who cleans up after the ceremonies. You wash the blood from the sacrificial altars. You clear away the wilted lotus blossoms and leftover food offerings. Your hands are chapped from the water and cleaning agents. Your knees are sore from kneeling on the hard stone floors. Your service is essential to the functioning of the temple, to maintaining its ma'at. But it is a humble, invisible role. You live a life of piety and labor, ensuring that the path for the gods is clean, even if your own is one of unending toil. After the reeds are harvested from the dangerous swamps and pressed into sheets in the workshop, the story is not yet ready to be written. The page must be smoothed, and that is your task. You are a papyrus burnisher, a craftsman whose job is to turn a rough, fibrous sheet into a surface worthy of a scribe's reed pen. You work in a hot, dusty workshop, sitting on a low stool for hours on end. In front of you is a stack of newly made papyrus sheets. They are still coarse, the fibers uneven. Your tool is simple, a smooth, rounded stone, a piece of ivory or a shell. You take a sheet of papyrus and begin to rub. The motion is repetitive, a constant back and forth pressure that you must maintain for hours. You burnish each sheet until its surface is glossy and smooth, ready to accept ink without it bleeding or smudging. The work is monotonous and physically taxing. The repetitive motion puts a severe strain on your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder. A deep, burning ache settles into your joints, a pain that never truly goes away. The workshop is filled with the fine dust of papyrus fibers, which you inhale with every breath. The air is dry, and the scent of the reeds is ever present. You work in a team, and the only sound is the rhythmic, scraping sound of stone on paper, a soft sanding noise that becomes the soundtrack to your life. Your work is a crucial step in the creation of knowledge. The sheets you smooth will be used to record temple inventories, royal decrees, medical texts, and sacred hymns. You are preparing the canvas for history itself, but you are an anonymous part of the process. The scribe who writes on the papyrus will be honored for his skill. The text he records will be preserved for centuries, but no one will remember the man whose aching arm made that writing possible. You are paid by the sheet. The more you burnish, the more you eat. So you cannot slow down even when your arm feels like it's on fire. You are a polisher of pages, a faceless artisan whose labor allows for the recording of a civilization. You may never read the words that will be written on your work, but you can feel the weight of their importance in the smooth, finished surface under your hand. The great stones of the temples travel by sledge, pulled by hundreds of men. But the rest of Egypt, the grain, the pottery, the linen, the bricks travels on the back of a donkey. And you are the one who guides it. You are a donkey driver, a master of the most stubborn and essential beast of burden in the kingdom. Your life is one of endless roads and constant prodding. You lead a train of donkeys, each laden with heavy baskets or sacks from the farms to the city markets or from the workshops to the river ports. You walk beside them, your staff in hand, your voice a constant stream of encouragement, commands and curses. The donkey is not a noble creature like the horse. It is small, resilient, and famously opinionated. It might decide to stop in the middle of the road for no reason. It might try to bite you. It might wander off to eat something it shouldn't. Your job is to keep it moving, to keep the caravan on schedule. It is a battle of wills, fought every day under the hot sun. The roads are dusty and crowded. You must navigate through throngs of people, other animal trains, and the occasional chariot of a noble who expects you to get out of his way immediately. You are a low-status figure, a dusty traveler who smells faintly of animal and sweat. People look down on you, but they depend on your cargo. You sleep on the side of the road or in the courtyards of noisy inns. Your companions are your donkeys and the other drivers. You share stories, complain about your animals, and guard your cargo against thieves who prowl the roads at night. Your skin is weathered, your feet are calloused, and your patience has been worn thin by 1,000 stubborn animals. But you know the roads of Egypt better than anyone. You know the quickest routes, the safest places to rest, and the best sources of water. You are the circulatory system of the Egyptian economy, a vital link in the chain that moves goods from where they are made to where they are needed. You are not celebrated in poems or carved onto temple walls. But when a hungry family buys a sack of grain at the market, or a priest receives a new set of pottery for his temple, it is because you and your stubborn, steadfast donkeys made the journey. Every batch of life-sustaining Egyptian beer begins with a clean vessel, ensuring that cleanliness is your burden. You are a vat cleaner, and yours is arguably the worst and most foul-smelling job in the entire brewery. While the brewers mix the grain and the fire tenders stoke the kilns, you are given the task of preparing the massive ceramic jars for the next round of fermentation. These vats are taller than you are, and their insides are coated with a thick, sticky, sour-smelling residue from the last batch of beer. Your job is to get inside and scrub. You are lowered into the dark, narrow confines of the vat, a space with little air, and a powerful cloying stench of old yeast and fermented barley. You use a stiff brush, made of palm fibers, and a scraper made of bronze to chip away at the hardened residue. The work is claustrophobic and suffocating. The fumes make your eyes water and your head swim. You scrub and scrape for hours, your body contorted in the cramped space. When you have loosened the residue, water is poured in, and you use rags to wash the sides, turning the inside of the vat into a slick, smelly mess. You emerge at the end of the task, covered from head to toe in the sour goop, smelling like a brewery's bad dream. You must then move on to the next vat and the next. It is a cycle of filth and purification. You are the lowest-ranking worker in the brewery, given the job no one else wants. Your work is essential. An unclean vat can spoil an entire batch of beer, wasting precious grain and angering the foreman. But you receive no credit for this. You are simply the man who works in the dark, cleaning away the old to make way for the new. You are paid in beer, the very liquid whose foul beginnings you are so intimately familiar with. You drink it gratefully, trying to forget the smell, the confinement, and the knowledge that tomorrow another vat will be waiting. Your childhood is not one of games and toys. It is a long watch under the sun. You are a scarecrow, a living one. From the moment the seeds are sown until the day of the harvest, your job is to protect the fields from birds. It is a task of immense responsibility entrusted to the smallest members of the village. You are sent to the fields at sunrise with a simple tool, a clapper made of 2 pieces of wood or a sling with a supply of clay pellets. You find a spot on a raised platform or simply wander the edges of the vast barley or wheat fields, and you wait. Your entire day is spent in a state of alert boredom. You watch the sky, your eyes scanning for the dark specks of pigeons, crows, or sparrows descending on the crops. When you see them, you spring into action. You shout, you wave your arms, you bang your clapper together, creating a sharp, sudden noise to startle them away. You hurl clay pellets from your sling, not to hit the birds, but to scare them with the sound of their landing among the stalks. The work is lonely. You are often alone for hours with only the sun and the wind for company. The heat is intense and there is little shade. You are expected to stay in the fields all day without distraction. If you fall asleep or wander off to play, a flock of birds can descend and ruin a portion of the crop. The consequences would be severe, not just a scolding from your parents, but a loss of food for the entire village. You are a small guardian of the community's survival. You learn the habits of the birds, their feeding times, their flight patterns. You become an expert in the art of noise and motion. It is a job that requires focus and endurance far beyond your years. You do not go to a scribe school. You do not learn a craft. Your education is in the rustle of the wind, the shadow of a hawk, and the desperate importance of a single field of grain. At sunset, you return to your family, your throat raw from shouting, your arm tired from slinging. You have spent your day protecting the food that will feed you, a small, sunburnt soldier in the endless war against hunger. When a great man dies, the grief of his family is not enough. The gods demand a spectacle of sorrow, and you are paid to provide it. You are a professional mourner, a woman whose job is to perform grief. You are hired by noble families to join the funeral procession, your presence a mark of the deceased's status. The more mourners, the more important the man. Your work begins when the mummified body is carried from the embalmer's workshop. You and a troop of other women join the procession, your hair unbound and caked with dust. You wear simple torn linen dresses. As the procession moves toward the tomb, you begin to wail. It is not a quiet cry. It is a loud, piercing, theatrical lament that echoes through the streets. You beat your bare chest with your fists. You throw dust and ashes over your head, a sign of profound despair. You scratch your cheeks until they bleed. The performance must be convincing. The gods are watching, and so are the living. Your grief must appear so overwhelming that it honors the dead and satisfies the living. You chant songs of sorrow, reciting the virtues of the deceased, lamenting his departure from the world of the living. It is emotionally and physically exhausting work. You are embodying a grief that is not your own, a hollow performance that leaves you empty at the end of the day. You are an actress in the theater of death. For your service, you are paid in bread or grain. It is a strange transaction, food in exchange for tears. You are a necessary part of the funerary ritual, but you are also seen as a woman connected to the world of death, someone who walks too closely with sorrow. After the tomb is sealed, you return to your own life, your own quiet existence, carrying the dust of a stranger's death in your hair, your voice hoarse from a grief you were paid to feel. Before a tomb wall can be painted with scenes of the afterlife, or before a temple block can be set with mortar, the stone itself must be broken down into dust. You are the human millstone. You are a stone grinder, a laborer, whose task is one of mind-numbing, body-breaking repetition. You work in a dusty yard near the great construction sites. Your station is a hard, flat stone slab. Your tool is another stone, heavy and rounded, that fits in your hands. Your material is a pile of limestone or mineral chunks, malachite for green pigment, ochre for red, gypsum for white. Your job is to grind it into a fine powder. You kneel or sit hunched over the slab all day. You take the grinding stone and begin to work it back and forth, crushing the harder stone beneath it. The motion is constant, a slow, abrasive rhythm that you feel in your wrists, your shoulders, and your back. The sound is a grating scrape that fills your ears for hours on end. The dust is the worst part. It rises in a fine cloud, coating your skin, getting in your eyes, and filling your lungs. You cough constantly, a dry, dusty hack. You know in a distant, resigned way that this dust is killing you slowly, turning your insides to stone, just like the material you grind. But there is no protection, no mask, just a linen cloth you might tie over your face, which quickly becomes caked with dust and sweat. You are not creating a monument. You are not carving a statue. You are creating the raw material for others to use. The powder you make will be mixed with a binder to become paint for a magnificent mural, or it will become mortar to seal the joints of a temple wall. You are an essential but forgotten step in the process of creation. You are paid by the basket. The more powder you produce, the more food you receive. So you do not stop. You just grind your body, a simple machine turning stone into dust, trading your own life force for the pigments that will give color to eternity. The floors of Egypt are not made of wood or stone, but of woven reeds. Your life is a tapestry of this humble, sharp-edged grass. You are a mat weaver, and you spend your days sitting on the ground, your hands in constant motion, turning bundles of dried reeds into the flooring, bedding, and walls that furnish the homes of everyone from the simplest farmer to the highest noble. You work in the shade of a simple awning, surrounded by piles of dried reeds that have been harvested from the Nile marshes. The air is filled with their dry, earthy scent. You sit cross-legged on the dirt floor, a position you hold for so long that your hips and back ache with a dull, persistent fire. Your tools are your hands. You take the long, flat reeds and begin to weave, splitting them with your fingernails or a small bronze knife. The edges of the reeds are surprisingly sharp, and your fingers are a web of tiny, stinging cuts. You work quickly, your hands moving with a practiced rhythm that you learned as a child. You weave simple patterns, checking for strength and consistency. The work is monotonous. You weave for hours, the world shrinking to the pattern forming in front of you. You are creating the very fabric of an Egyptian home, the mat that will be slept on the screen, that will offer a sliver of privacy, the flooring that will be swept clean each morning. But your craft is a humble one. You are paid little for your skilled labor. A large mat, which might take you days to complete, will be traded for a few loaves of bread or a small measure of grain. You are part of the vast anonymous class of artisans who create the objects of daily life. Your creations are everywhere, yet you are invisible. A noble might walk across your mat without a thought for the hands that wove it. A family might sleep on your work for years, never knowing your name. Your legacy is quiet, functional, and ultimately disposable. When a mat wears out, it is thrown away and replaced. And you are still there, sitting on the ground, your back aching, your fingers cut weaving another one to take its place. The Nile is a river of gods and kings, but it is also a river of everyday crossings. You are the bridge, made of wood and sweat. You are a ferryman, and your job is to pull people, livestock, and goods across the canals and tributaries that branch off the great river. Your vessel is not a grand painted barge. It is a small rickety skiff, often cobbled together from planks of acacia wood and sealed with pitch. It leaks, and you spend part of your day bailing out water with a clay pot. Your tool is a long wooden pole, which you use to push off the muddy riverbed, guiding your boat from one bank to the other. The work is physically demanding. Poling against the current requires immense strength in your arms and shoulders. You are on your feet all day, your balance tested by the shifting weight of your passengers. And your passengers are a varied lot. A farmer with 2 noisy goats, a merchant with sacks of grain, a woman returning from the market with a basket of onions, a priest on his way to a village temple. They haggle with you over the fare. A few copper deben a piece of bread, a handful of dates. Some try not to pay at all. You must be firm, but careful. An argument with the wrong person could end in a complaint to the village elder or a fist fight on the riverbank. The sun is a constant presence, beating down on you and reflecting off the water. Your skin is dark and cracked. You are exposed to all the dangers of the river, the sudden gusts of wind, the hidden sandbars, and the ever-present crocodiles that watch you from a distance. Your life is a series of short journeys, back and forth, back and forth. You hear all the gossip of the village. You know who is traveling where, who is buying what, and who is meeting whom in secret. You are a silent observer, a fixture of the local landscape, as much a part of the river as the reeds and the fish. You are providing an essential service, connecting communities that would otherwise be isolated. But your status is low. You are a simple laborer, your wealth measured in the handful of coins you collect each day. At night, you tie up your boat, your body sore, and you return to your small hut, knowing that with the sunrise, the river will be waiting for you again. In Egypt, nothing is wasted. Not the silt of the river, not the reeds of the marsh, not even the droppings of animals. And it is your job to collect this humble, foul-smelling treasure. You are a dung collector, and yours is one of the most essential and least respected jobs in the kingdom. You spend your day wandering the village paths and the fields where cattle graze. You carry a wide basket on your back. Your tool is your own 2 hands. You look for the dried cakes of cattle dung that lie baking in the sun. This is the primary fuel for the cooking fires of most Egyptian households. Wood is scarce and expensive. Dung is free and plentiful. The work is dirty and smelly. You are surrounded by flies. The stench is a constant companion, a smell that you no longer even notice, but that marks you in the eyes of others. People see you, and they move away holding a cloth to their noses. You are at the very bottom of the social ladder. But your work is vital. Without the dung you collect, families could not bake their bread or cook their evening stew. You are providing the heat that sustains life. You take the collected dung back to your home, where you mix it with straw and water, shape it into flat, round cakes, and slap it against a wall to dry in the sun. These fuel cakes are your currency. You use them for your own fire and trade them in the market for food. Sometimes you collect dung for other purposes. The droppings of crocodiles were believed to have contraceptive properties. Other types of dung were used in medical remedies, mixed into poultices by physicians. You are the purveyor of this strange medicinal filth. It is a life of stooping and gathering, of living with a smell that never washes away. You are performing a service that no one wants to do, but that everyone depends on. You are a recycler of the earth's waste, a humble alchemist turning the foul into the functional. You are ignored, you are shunned, but you know a simple truth. In a world of scarcity, even the lowest of things has value. And in the dung you carry, there is the warmth of 1,000 future fires. Your childhood is not one of games and toys. It is a long watch under the sun. You are a scarecrow, a living one. From the moment the seeds are sown until the day of the harvest, your job is to protect the fields from birds. It is a task of immense responsibility entrusted to the smallest members of the village. You are sent to the fields at sunrise with a simple tool, a clapper made of 2 pieces of wood, or a sling with a supply of clay pellets. You find a spot on a raised platform, or simply wander the edges of the vast barley or wheat fields, and you wait. Your entire day is spent in a state of alert boredom. You watch the sky, your eyes scanning for the dark specks of pigeons, crows, or sparrows descending on the crops. When you see them, you spring into action. You shout. You wave your arms. You bang your clapper together, creating a sharp, sudden noise to startle them away. You hurl clay pellets from your sling, not to hit the birds but to scare them with the sound of their landing among the stalks. The work is lonely. You are often alone for hours, with only the sun and the wind for company. The heat is intense, and there is little shade. You are expected to stay in the fields all day without distraction. If you fall asleep or wander off to play, a flock of birds can descend and ruin a portion of the crop. The consequences would be severe, not just a scolding from your parents, but a loss of food for the entire village. You are a small guardian of the community's survival. You learn the habits of the birds, their feeding times, their flight patterns. You become an expert in the art of noise and motion. It is a job that requires focus and endurance far beyond your years. You do not go to a scribe school. You do not learn a craft. Your education is in the rustle of the wind, the shadow of a hawk, and the desperate importance of a single field of grain. At sunset, you return to your family, your throat raw from shouting, your arm tired from slinging. You have spent your day protecting the food that will feed you, a small, sunburnt soldier in the endless war against hunger. You dream of the scribe's palate, of the authority that comes with the written word. To be a scribe is to escape the sun and the mud, to hold a position of respect and power. But before you can master the reed pen, you must first master the grinding stone. You are a scribe's apprentice, and your journey begins not with poetry, but with pigment. Your first duty is to mix your master's inks. You spend hours grinding minerals into a fine powder charcoal, for black ochre for red. You use a stone pestle and mortar, your arm aching with the repetitive circular motion. You mix the powder with water and a binder, usually gum arabic, until it becomes a smooth, consistent ink. If the consistency is wrong, if there are lumps, your master will know. He might cuff you on the back of the head, or worse, make you start over. You do not practice on precious papyrus. That is for real scribes. You are given ostraca, broken shards of pottery, the trash of the village. On these rough, uneven surfaces, you practice your hieroglyphs. Your master gives you a text to copy, perhaps a simple list of goods or a passage from a well-known tale. Your hand cramps as you try to form the hundreds of complex signs. The reed pen feels clumsy in your fingers. Your lines are shaky. Your master inspects your work with a cold, critical eye. He points out every mistake. The owl is facing the wrong way. The water sign is too wide. The loop of the rope is uneven. For each error, there might be a sharp rap on the knuckles with his teaching stick. There is no praise, only the absence of criticism. You spend years like this, grinding ink, cleaning palettes, and copying the same texts over and over until the shapes are burned into your memory. You are learning discipline, patience, and humility through endless mind-numbing repetition. You watch the other scribes as they record temple inventories or draft letters for nobles. They move with a quiet confidence that seems a world away. One day, if you are diligent and if your master deems you worthy, you will be given your own roll of papyrus. But that day is far off. For now, you are the boy who prepares the tools for history, the one who mixes the ink that others will use to write their names into eternity. You are a shadow that follows a great man. Your purpose is not to protect him or advise him, but to carry his shoes. You are a sandal bearer, a servant of the lowest rank, and your existence is one of endless walking and silent, humiliating patience. Your master is a high priest or a powerful noble. When he walks through the dusty streets of the city, he wears a simple, sturdy pair of sandals. But when he is to enter a sacred space, a temple, a shrine, or another noble's clean home, he cannot bring the filth of the outside world with him. That is where you come in. You walk a few paces behind him, carrying his fine, clean sandals, often made of soft leather, and decorated with paint or beads. You also carry a small jug of water and a cloth. When your master reaches his destination, he stops. You kneel before him, remove his dusty street sandals, and wash his feet. You do this with your head bowed, avoiding eye contact. Then you carefully fit the clean sandals onto his feet. Your life is a series of thresholds. You wait at the entrance to temples you will never enter. You stand in the courtyards of palaces whose inner chambers you will never see. You listen to the conversations of powerful men, their voices drifting out from rooms you are forbidden to look into. You are present for everything, but part of nothing. While your master feasts, you wait outside. While he prays, you guard the shoes that connect him to the profane world he has temporarily left behind. You are a living coat rack, a mobile shoe closet. It is a job that requires no skill, only obedience, and the ability to be completely invisible. At the end of the day, when your master returns home, you reverse the process, washing his feet again and putting away the fine sandals. You are given a simple meal and a mat to sleep on in the servants' quarters. You have spent your day in the presence of greatness, but you have never been further from it. Your only role is to ensure that your master never has to touch the dust that you live in. You serve the gods, but your service is not one of chanting hymns from a gilded dais or interpreting the dreams of kings. Your service is one of bucket's blood and silence. You are a wab priest, a purifier, and your duties are the dirty essential tasks that keep the temple running. Before the high priest can perform the grand ceremonies, the temple must be ritually pure. That is your responsibility. You rise before dawn and cleanse yourself, for you cannot clean the house of a god if you are yourself unclean. You then begin your rounds. Your first task is to clean the sacrificial altar. After yesterday's offerings, it is stained with blood and fat. You scrub the stone with water and natron until it is spotless. You collect the ashes from the braziers and dispose of them in a designated pit. You clean the knives and other ritual instruments. The smell of old blood and burnt offerings is a permanent part of your world. You are responsible for the temple floors, sweeping away the dust and any stray offerings left by worshippers. You fill the basins with fresh, purified water. You tend to the sacred fires, ensuring they never go out. You are in a constant state of cleaning, of maintaining a state of purity that is always being threatened by the simple messiness of ritual. You are part of the priesthood, but you are at the bottom. You are not learned in theology or sacred texts. Your knowledge is practical. How to remove a stubborn bloodstain, how to mix incense correctly, how to move through the temple without making a sound. The high priests with their elaborate robes and shaved heads walk past you without a word. You are a necessary but invisible part of the divine machinery. You are not allowed in the innermost sanctum, but you clean the doorway that leads to it. You hear the sacred chants from a distance, but you do not participate in them. Your role is to handle the physical remnants of worship, the blood, the ash, the waste. You are the sacred janitor, a man whose piety is measured not in prayers, but in the cleanliness of the space where others pray. The elite of Egypt wear their status on their heads. Intricate wigs of human hair are a symbol of purity, fashion, and power. You are the one who makes them, and the process is anything but glamorous. You are a wig maker's assistant, and your world is a tangle of hair, beeswax, and resin. Your workshop is a small, cluttered room. The raw material arrives in sacks, masses of human hair. It has been bought from poor women taken from the heads of slaves, or sometimes even collected from tombs. Your first job is to clean it. You wash the tangled, dirty locks in water, and natron picking out the lice and other filth. The smell is unpleasant, a mix of old sweat and dust. Once the hair is clean, you must sort it by length and quality. Then you begin the tedious process of attaching it strand by strand to a woven cap made of fiber. You use a mixture of heated beeswax and resin as your glue. You work for hours, your fingers sticky, your eyes straining to see the fine hairs. The styles are complex. Some wigs have hundreds of tiny braids. Others are arranged in elegant layered curls. You follow the patterns set by your master, your hands moving with a repetitive precision that you have mastered through years of practice. You are creating the illusion of a perfect full head of hair, an essential part of the noble Egyptian aesthetic. You work with tools that are simple, but effective fine-toothed combs made of bone-bronze needles to help with the braiding and pots to heat the wax. The workshop is hot, and the smell of melting wax and hair is a constant presence. When a wig is finished, it is a work of art. It will be worn by a noblewoman at a banquet, or by a high priest during a sacred ceremony. It will signify their rank, their purity, their connection to the divine. They will never know about the boy who spent weeks cleaning the hair of strangers, his fingers raw his back, aching to create the symbol of their perfection. You are the hidden craftsman, behind the mask of nobility, your labor woven into the very fabric of their identity. Honey is the nectar of the gods, a divine sweetness used in temples, tombs, and on the tables of the wealthy. But getting it is a trial of smoke and stings, and you are on the front line. You are the beekeeper's assistant, and your job is to face the swarm. The hives are not the neat wooden boxes of the modern world. They are long cylindrical tubes, made of baked clay stacked in rows under the hot sun. To harvest the honey, the bees must be calmed. The master beekeeper hands you a smoldering pot, often burning dried dung, which produces a thick, acrid smoke. Your job is to blow this smoke into the narrow opening of the hive. You lean in your face, close to the entrance, and blow. The bees, disoriented and confused by the smoke, become less aggressive. But they are never truly calm. You have no protective suit, no veil, no gloves. Your only protection is a linen cloth wrapped around your head and a prayer to the gods that the bees will be merciful today. They rarely are. You are stung frequently. On your hands, your arms, your face. Each sting is a sharp, burning pain. You learn not to flinch, not to cry out. To show panic would be to agitate the hive further. You simply endure the pain, your body a map of swollen red welts. Once the bees are subdued, the master beekeeper reaches into the hive to remove the heavy, sticky honeycombs. Your job is to hold the pot for the dripping combs, the sweet, golden honey, coating your hands. The air is thick with the smell of smoke honey and the angry buzzing of thousands of bees. You are performing a dangerous, painful job to harvest a luxury you will rarely taste. The honey is destined for the temple offerings or the pharaoh's court. You might be given a small taste, a sticky finger, to lick clean as your payment. The real prize is the beeswax, which your family might be allowed to keep to make candles. You work in a state of constant low-grade fear. Every movement must be slow and deliberate. A sudden move, a dropped pot, and the hive could erupt, covering you in a cloud of vengeful insects. It is a job that requires immense courage, patience, and a high tolerance for pain. You are the guardian of sweetness, but your own life is filled with the sting of your labor. When you think of these great pyramids, the image that often comes to mind is one of immense suffering of thousands upon thousands of slaves being driven by the whips of cruel overseers. It's a powerful story, one cemented by Hollywood epics and popular myth. But the truth, as uncovered from the dust of Giza itself, is far more complex, and in some ways more astonishing. The evidence suggests that the pyramids were not built by slaves. At least, not in the way we understand the term. The workforce was a highly organized, state-managed project composed largely of skilled Egyptian laborers. Archaeologists have excavated the remains of a sprawling workers' village near the pyramids, and what they found wasn't a prison camp. They found a planned city with bakeries, breweries, and medical facilities. The skeletons of these workers show that they received medical care. Bones were set, and even complex surgeries like amputations were performed. Slaves are not typically afforded such treatment. So who were these workers? Many were farmers. During the season of Aked, when the Nile flooded their fields, they had no crops to tend. The state mobilized this massive idle workforce through a system of corvée labor, a form of national service or taxation paid in work. For a few months out of the year, you would leave your village and travel to Giza. You were paid not in coin, but in rations, a daily supply of bread, beer, and onions, enough to keep you strong. It was grueling, back-breaking work, and it was compulsory. But it was not slavery. It was a civic and religious duty. Alongside these seasonal laborers were permanent, highly skilled craftsmen, stonemasons, architects, and engineers who lived at Giza year-round. These were respected artisans, the best in the kingdom. They were the ones who perfected the alignments, carved the intricate passages, and orchestrated the placement of stones with a precision that still baffles us today. They were organized into teams with names like the Drunkards of Menkaure, suggesting a sense of camaraderie and identity. While their lives were hard, they were not the faceless chained masses of legend. They were proud builders, participants in a project they believed was essential to the cosmic order of their world. After hearing about the sand, the sickness, and the endless toil, it would be easy to assume that life in ancient Egypt was nothing but a grim, joyless march toward an early grave. And while hardship was undeniably a constant companion, that is not the whole story. The Egyptians were not a people defined solely by their suffering. They were also a people who loved life with a passion that is evident in the art artifacts and texts they left behind. They were a civilization that celebrated. Their calendar was filled with dozens of religious festivals, many of which involved feasting, music, dancing, and drinking. The Opet Festival in Thebes or the beautiful Feast of the Valley were massive public holidays where the statues of the gods were paraded through the streets, and the entire community participated in days of celebration. Beer was not just a source of calories. It was a social lubricant, a gift from the gods to bring joy. Music was everywhere. Tomb paintings depict banquet scenes with musicians playing harps, lutes, and flutes while graceful dancers entertain the guests. Even a humble worker's home might have a simple reed flute or a small drum. They played board games, with Senet being the most popular, a game of strategy and luck that was believed to mirror the soul's journey through the afterlife. Family was the bedrock of society. Marriages, while often arranged, were expected to be partnerships of affection and mutual respect. Love poems from the New Kingdom speak of longing, beauty, and desire with a tenderness that feels remarkably modern. Children were cherished, and art frequently depicts parents holding their children with deep affection. While life was undoubtedly hard and short, the Egyptians did not surrender to despair. They embraced the moments of joy, the comfort of family, the release of a festival, and the beauty of their art. They understood the balance of Ma'at, not just as a cosmic principle, but as a personal one. A life of hard work, yes, but also a life of celebration. How did a civilization get thousands of people to perform such back-breaking, dangerous labor for generations? The answer lies not in whips and chains, but in a powerful ideology that framed work not as toil, but as a sacred duty. In the Egyptian worldview, your job was a form of worship, a direct contribution to the maintenance of the universe. The pharaoh was not a mere king. He was a god on earth, the intermediary between the mortal realm and the divine. His health and success were directly linked to the health and success of Egypt itself. The great temples were not just places of worship. They were the homes of the gods. The pyramids were not just tombs. They were powerful engines of resurrection, ensuring the pharaoh's rebirth and, by extension, the eternal stability of the cosmos. Therefore, when you hauled a stone for the pharaoh's pyramid, you were not just building a monument. You were helping to uphold Ma'at, the divine order. You were participating in a cosmic ritual. This belief system was a powerful tool of social control. It gave meaning to suffering. Your aching back, your blistered hands, your exhaustion, these were not signs of oppression. They were signs of your piety, your contribution to the eternal order. The overseers and scribes reinforced this ideology daily. Work was structured like a religious ceremony. Teams were given sacred names. Rituals were performed before major tasks began. This framing transformed labor from a purely physical act into a spiritual one. It allowed people to endure conditions we would find unbearable, not because they were forced to at every moment, but because they believed their work had a purpose far greater than themselves. They were not just building for a king. They were building for the gods, for Egypt, for eternity. And in that belief they found the strength to move mountains. As we look back at the grand monuments of Egypt, we see the legacy of Pharaoh's architects and high priests. But the empire was truly built by invisible hands. The hands of the farmer, ankle-deep in mud, the tanner working with foul-smelling hides, the brickmaker shaping the earth, the laundry worker scrubbing linen in caustic solutions. These were the essential workers of the ancient world, their labor the foundation upon which the entire civilization stood. Yet, their names are lost to history. This is a truth that echoes into our own time. Every society, ancient or modern, is supported by a vast network of laborers whose work is often overlooked, underpaid, and taken for granted. The man who collected dung for fuel was as vital to a household as the man who built its walls. The woman who wove the mats for the floor was as essential as the scribe who wrote upon the papyrus she could not afford. The social hierarchy of Egypt placed these workers at the bottom, treating them as impure or insignificant. Yet without them, the temples would have no offerings, the armies would have no sandals, and the nobles would have no homes. They were the engine of the economy, the backbone of society, yet they were socially and politically invisible. This reflects a timeless paradox. The most foundational work is often the least valued. We see it today in the people who clean our cities, harvest our food, and care for our sick. They are essential, yet they are often the least protected and the most poorly compensated. In ancient Egypt, this structure was simply accepted as the divine order. Today it raises questions about justice and equity. By looking at the forgotten jobs of Egypt, we see a mirror of our own world, a reminder that the greatest achievements of a civilization are always built on the quiet, uncelebrated labor of the many. We stand before the pyramids of Giza or the temples of Karnak, and we are silenced by their scale, their permanence, their sheer, impossible grandeur. We see them as monuments to human achievement, to a civilization that could touch the eternal. And they are. But they are also monuments to something else, an almost unimaginable human cost. For every block of stone perfectly placed, how many men were crushed? For every gleaming obelisk raised to the sun, God, how many laborers died of heat stroke in the quarries? For every golden treasure sealed in a tomb, How many miners spent their short, brutal lives in the suffocating darkness of the earth? We see the glory, but we have forgotten the price. The greatness of ancient Egypt was paid for in the shortened lives, the broken bodies, and the anonymous sweat of millions. The average lifespan of a common laborer was perhaps 35 years. Their skeletons show evidence of arthritis, spinal deformities from heavy lifting, and teeth worn down by sandy bread. They built tombs for kings to live for eternity, but their own eternities were cut short by the very work that made those tombs possible. This is the uncomfortable truth behind so much of what we call heritage. The great wonders of the world are often born from systems of profound inequality and coercion. Whether it was the corvée labor of Egypt, the slave economy of Rome, or the feudalism of medieval Europe, history's most beautiful creations are often rooted in its most brutal realities. This does not diminish their beauty or their historical importance, but it asks us to look at them with a second sight, to see not just the monument, but the hands that built it. To remember not just the pharaoh, but the farmer. To acknowledge that behind every story of divine glory, there is a human story of struggle, sacrifice, and endurance. And that, perhaps, is the truest wonder of all. So we stand at the end of our day, a single brutal sun-scorched day in ancient Egypt. We've walked in the sandals of the farmer, the miner, and the tomb robber. We've felt the grit of the sand in our bread and the heat of the quarry on our skin. And through it all, the great monument stood silent and imposing a testament to the gods, the pharaohs, and an order that seemed eternal. But those monuments were not built by gods. They were built by the calloused hands and aching backs of ordinary people. For every pharaoh laid to rest in a golden sarcophagus, 1,000,000 laborers were laid to rest in the nameless sand. For every priest who chanted a hymn in a cool temple, 1,000 quarrymen choked on stone dust in the desert heat. The glory of ancient Egypt, the legacy that has captivated the world for millennia, was built upon a foundation of their forgotten lives. Their names were not carved into the temple walls. Their stories were not written on the papyrus scrolls. They were the silent, invisible majority whose sweat and sacrifice were the true mortar that held the empire together. They did not leave behind statues or treasures. They left behind the quiet evidence of their existence, the worn-down teeth in their skulls, the stress fractures in their bones, the simple clay pots buried beside them in shallow graves. They were the farmers who fed the kingdom, the builders who raised its temples, the miners who brought forth its jewels, and the servants who maintained its households. They were the fuel that the great engine of Egypt consumed. And when their short, hard lives were over, they were returned to the earth, their contributions absorbed back into the landscape they had toiled upon. The Nile continued to flood, the sun continued to rise, and new generations were born into the same cycle of duty and devotion. The great machine rolled on, powered by the belief that this was the way of Ma'at, the way of the universe. The names of the pharaohs live on, but the names of the people who held up their world are gone, whispered away by the desert wind. And now, as this long day comes to a close, you can feel the coolness of your own room. The air is still. There is no dust, no scorching sun, no overseer's shout. You are not on a straw mat on a dirt floor. You are in your bed safe. But for a moment, imagine if you weren't. Imagine if you had been born on the banks of the Nile 4,000 years ago. Which of these lives would have been yours? Would you have been the farmer, your life tied to the river's rhythm, the miner lost in the suffocating darkness, the tanner living with a smell that marked you as unclean, or the pyramid, Bayesh, builder one of 1,000 figures straining against a rope? Your identity lost in the shadow of a mountain of stone. Would you have had the strength to endure even a single day? The water you drink is clean. The food you eat is nourishing. The work you do, no matter how difficult, does not demand your life as a sacrifice to a God-King. You have rights choices and a lifespan that would have seemed like an impossible dream to the people we have walked with tonight. The comforts we take for granted, a soft bed, A quiet room medicine for our fevers would have been the stuff of myth for them. Their reality was a world of hard edges where survival was a daily victory, and the gods were always watching. They lived with a resilience that is hard for us to comprehend. They found joy in festivals, comfort in family, and purpose in a cosmic order that demanded their labor. Their lives were not easy, but they were full of a meaning that we now can only try to understand from a great distance. But you are not there anymore. You are here. The dust of the pyramids has settled. The heat of the desert has faded. The chants from the temples are silent now, carried away on the winds of time. The Nile flows on, but it flows now only in your mind, a quiet, gentle current pulling you away from that ancient world. Let the stories of the farmer, the builder, and the priest dissolve. Their work is done. Their long day is over. 5.6. Rest now. You are safe in the stillness of your own time. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Listen to the soft sound of your own breathing. You are not hauling stone. You are not grinding grain. You are at rest. The great river is carrying you now not to a life of labor, but to a place of deep, quiet sleep. Let it take you. There is nothing more to do. Rest now.